All right, so the Timmins Group portal, you may ask, what is it? So first of all, Timmins Group portal is a public-facing portal for CityWorks. Our idea in creating this was to really leverage and extend the underlying CityWorks technology and the logic engine within PLL. It is built completely on top of CityWorks PLL APIs. So this is the reason why we can deploy this very quickly. It gives your constituents, your citizens, the ability to go online, apply for permits, licenses, schedule inspections, pay fees, etc. Why is it important? And especially, as Ron was saying, with the new normal of today. So really, our portal is going to allow you to seamlessly operate remotely. You don't have to have your offices open for counter traffic. We can implement this in as quickly as 4 weeks for those who already have CityWorks PLL. We have found it to be incredibly easy and user-friendly, meaning training is really not an issue at all. If you can get online and mess around with Facebook or other apps that are on a smart device, you can easily figure out how to navigate through our portal, apply for your permits, your business licenses, whatever it is you want to do online. You can process payments remotely. We have 16 portals up and working right now, and all of them have 16 different portal processing tools that we've been able to integrate with, so that has not been a problem for us at all. And again, it's going to migrate all your traditional counter traffic right to a web-based tool. So real quick little graphic here of the nuts and bolts behind our portal. Again, we're just leveraging the CityWorks APIs and hitting PLL and also the CityWorks database, as well as consuming REST services that you probably already have ready and published from Esri, and displaying those within the Timmins Group portal. And when Michael demos the portal for you, you'll be able to see these. And also, I guess the other thing to understand is that the workflows you have built into CityWorks PLL are going to be reflected automatically within the Timmins Group portal. And the integration is such that as status changes are made either through the portal or through CityWorks PLL, they will be reflected dynamically in either platform right away. So quick story, Escondido has been up and live with their portal for a couple months now. They have a population of 150,000. They've been using AMS for close to 20 years. And PLL, they went live about a year ago, and they're using it in business licensing, engineering, code enforcement, planning, etc. One of the big things that they were looking to do was get their business license renewal process online. That is up and running, and they're processing about 850 per month through the portal, which I think is just incredible. That means that's 150 less people coming into their offices to get their business licenses renewed or applied for. When they sat down and started looking at how they were going to deploy PLL and other systems, they wanted to leverage CityWorks. They wanted to leverage the platform. So these are just some of the bullet points that they gave to us about what they were looking to do. Really, they wanted to improve compliance. Their cross-departmental workflows were not great. They wanted to be able to allow their city staff to interact better with the citizens and provide better customer service. So we developed requirements with them. We actually met with end user customers to do this, to get daily operations and what it was, or the hoops and hurdles they were having to go through to get things done with the city. And we tried to create more efficiencies with those, both with the workflows within PLL and certainly reflected in the portal itself. These are direct quotes from Robert Vanderhey with Escondido. We asked him the question of what was the return on investment, and that's always a tricky question to ask. But really, he gave us these bullets that I thought were kind of insightful. That staffing levels have stayed basically the same, but their volume and their ability to process more and provide more service has increased. Their business license compliance has increased as well. Data-driven decisions, I know everybody's always after that, but they feel that that has become something they're doing a lot more of today. I think some of the unforeseen kind of good consequences were that code enforcement now has the ability to find things out in the field, and again, either through the portal or through the PLL mobile app, be able to do that. And comparing multiple lists of business sources is something they didn't really expect. Another unforeseen advantage that a couple of our clients have talked about are local contractors getting online to see what kind of big projects are coming up, and having the ability to look at those, and if, say, you're an electrician, looking to see these big projects and then marketing the people applying for these permits for, say, large buildings to let them know, hey, I'm an electrician, I would like to work with you. Let's see, Auburn, Alabama. Auburn, about 65,000 people. They've been using AMS for 7 years, PLL now for 3. They've been live with our portal since 2018. And Christopher Graff and Britt down there have some really good things to say about it as well. I actually talked to Chris the other day, and Ron mentioned this in his opening, but one of the things that they discovered when they had to move staff remotely was that they were unable to process payments. So Chris, real quick, remembered that we're processing payments through the portal and just redirected his staff, did a quick workflow change so that now when they get payments over the phone or, dealing with citizens via the portal, they can just do the payment processing through the Timmons Group PLL portal. And really, they haven't skipped a beat. The important thing he noted is that they're keeping the development community moving, keeping Auburn working, keeping contractors busy. I think that's another point he has, is that having the city facilities closed is really forcing those that weren't using the portal to use it, and they have come back basically saying that they found it very easy and that they wish they would have been doing it all along. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and give it over to Michael.
Thanks, Lou. It's my pleasure to demonstrate the Timmons Group Public Portal for CityWorks PLL today. We've put a lot of time into this product and effort into really building it out. Today I am going to try and focus on the simplicity of this implementation, try to demonstrate and discuss where things are happening that have been configured in PLL so we can leverage the hard work you've already put into that. Ease of use by citizens, contractors, and internal staff, and where we think the portal provides unique value to localities. So what you're looking at here is a splash page for the public portal. We do use credentials to log on, and that typically is in the form of an email and password. We've got a pretty in-depth create, count, forgot password process to really ease those concerns that you may have as the locality, wondering if contractors are going to always forget their password. The answer is they may, and it shouldn't really be an issue for you. I'm going to go ahead and log in here with my credentials, and you'll see that you're immediately brought to sort of a home page that presents the user with a number of options. The application is designed in a responsive manner so that we're able to kind of shrink and adjust to screen sizes. We found it pretty effective for those who like to use a tablet or a mobile phone. I'm not sure how many people are actually applying for permits with a mobile phone, but I certainly know that adoption with tablets has been pretty high. Well, you can see from our homepage, we have a number of options: reviewing existing permits, continuing incomplete permits, and paying fees for permits I'm responsible for. Creating new applications and submitting them into the system, requesting and canceling inspections, and making payments. Today, I'd like to focus on the create process, and then if we have some additional time or questions, we'll touch on a few of these others. To create a new permit application, it's fairly straightforward, right? Just to start the process off, we're going to select that we want to create a permit. The first decision point for the end user is to ask them whether they're going to relate the permit or create a new one. This has been really critical because if we're not asking the end user to relate them, we're really not establishing that parent-child relationship, which you know from building permits and trades and sub permits like that. It's really critical to build that relationship and that link. But today we're going to create a new one as a standalone. And when we look at the application type, we've designed it in a folder hierarchy type structure, which is configurable in PLL admin so that you all can leverage those tools. As you see here, by selecting a group, it gives me additional options to select specific actual case types or permit types. Selecting, residential permit electric, you can see by selecting my application type, I'm presented with some additional instructions that are pertinent to that application, which can be, again, configured in your public access help within the case template to kind of leverage that information in PL admin. I'm going to give it a project here, and I'm going to build a new market, let's say, give that a project name. All right, the next step would be to identify the location of this application. We do, leverage pretty standard mapping tools like pan and zoom. So if I zoom in, you can start to see address points and parcels pop up. Again, this is leveraging the map services which you've already configured in CityWorks PLL, both base maps, address points, parcel layers, and even your geocoder here. So, for example, we're going to use the ArcGIS JavaScript API for some of this searching, and really a lot of these autofill features are Esri products. So you can see here I was able to find 315 East 3rd Street, and it's given me both an address point and a parcel based on that intersection. Now, if I came to this map and I couldn't find my address point or parcel, or in scenarios where perhaps it's a large development on a project boundary or something that's not addressed yet, we do allow them to type in just a general location, which is populated in the main panel of CityWorks PLL. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Selecting next, we give the end user an option to add people to the case. In most scenarios, we envision this to be the person who's applying, so we've embedded this button, Add My Info, which allows me to add info that's established to my account, so I'm the PLL admin user, so it populates that information as well as my email address. But if I do want to add somebody else, we've built in the feature to kind of search your PLL people registry to identify users that way and pre-populate information. The different cards that we show here, we call these cards applicant and contact. These are based off of your default people role setup in the case template, again, so we're leveraging the hard work you've already done with your PLL configuration and just giving that a mirror image out to the public. So if you wanted to require additional contacts or people roles as a part of the application process, you'd be able to configure that in PLL admin under the case template. Moving forward, we're going to ask you to select a contractor. You'll notice here that there is not a free-form entry for the contractor. What we're asking the user to do is to select from a predefined list of active licensed contractors. Of course, that is something that could be modified, but the out-of-the-box product that we ship does look at contractors that are pre-configured in your system. So in this scenario, if you can't find the contractor, that's probably a place in which you need to contact the locality. I'm going to select 84 lumber here and add it down to my list, which is my selected contractor. If I pick the wrong one, fairly straightforward just to remove that and find another one. Okay. Moving forward, we step into our case data section. For those of you familiar with PLL, this is your data group. A couple things to point out here: required fields and help text. For each of these case types, you can define in the data group and your case data configuration, public access help questions or additional details. So we've embedded some help text here. Not too helpful in this scenario, but gives you all the idea. Also enforce required fields. On this permit, I don't know that we have any, but we do enforce required fields, mostly in scenarios where this data is used to calculate fees. Put some square footage here, and a reasonable cost of construction, I think, and a selected project date, say the end of the month. At this time, the user has completed the application, or nearly completed the application, and we're now asking them to agree to terms and conditions. These terms and conditions, again, can be configured in PLL admin under the case template, and they're shown here in the blue rectangle. You can see we're not allowing the user to submit the permit or the application, rather, until they do agree to the terms and conditions, and it will highlight in a brighter green here. Submitting the permit, again, once they submit, this is taking all the data that's been collected on the public portal and pushing it through the CityWorks PLL API into CityWorks and generating our permit R20-1070. Depending on the city's business rules or locality's business rules, we do give the option to pay fees, upload documents, and then view permit info about this project. If I want to upload documents, it's fairly straightforward. We built this drag and drop to your file explorer. If I browse here, I can find this blueprint, upload that, and close. Paying fees, again, is fairly straightforward. As Lou mentioned, there's a lot of point-of-sale solutions out there. I think we've integrated, as he mentioned, maybe 16. I would add another one here because out of the box, we do integrate with Stripe, if you are familiar with that, as well as PayPal. We like Stripe because it's just a really clean interface, and no need to write this number down. I'm afraid it won't work. But we can submit the payment here, paying fees, and or present the end user back with payment validation, which you can see additionally in CityWorks PLL. We'll go there in a minute. So I close that. I can view my permit info or apply for a new one. Viewing the permit info just takes me to a more detailed look at the information I submitted. If we jump over into CityWorks PLL, we can go find this permit and take a look at what was created in there via the API. So we created Michael's Market here, 11:24 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll go take a look at that. All right, so as you can see here, main panels, popular location, project name, XY coordinates. We did add the address and parcel. This is a really big time saver. If the end user is able to effectively add GIS data to your permit, that's saving a lot of time from your staff from having to do that. We added an applicant and our contact, our contractor, our case data, generated the PLL workflow. As you can see, we've also populated pre-configured flags. Attachments that I sent in my blueprint, we paid our fees using Stripe and can see the reference number from that integration. Okay. Jumping back to the portal, just to touch on a few other things while we're here. Because my email account and my user is connected to that project I just submitted, I would be able to go back and find this in the future as an existing permit. All of this being linked together, right? This is just a large list of over 800 entries that we've used to kind of test and build out this system, which allows the user to kind of flag and find their permits. Incomplete permits and licenses, helpful feature. This would allow me to go back to something that I've been working on. In our experience, I don't think this happens that often. As you can see, the permitting process is fairly quick. So I don't think it's very often that people get halfway through and stop, but it's certainly possible. If I wanted to come back and pay fees later, we tried to make that as easy as possible. Again, pay permits and fees. We show all the fees associated to my user. And again, I'm a test account, so I'm a little bit behind on my fees due. It's a little scary. But if I wanted to take a look at my fees individually, I can look at those fees, see the detail associated with them, and then, of course, pay them again through that integrated point of sale. As we kind of strive to decrease traffic, maybe in the office, requesting and canceling inspections is oftentimes something that's really on the phone. But we've built that into this as well. Requesting inspections, fairly straightforward. A couple things to keep in mind about this is we don't display inspections to the end user unless they're available, right? So certain milestones have had to be reached in the workflow. Maybe fees are paid, the permit's been issued to be able to see these inspections. But if I do have inspections available and linked to my account, I can see them in this list, select them, highlight them there, pick a date. Let's say, look for tomorrow. Selecting time preferences and dates. This, again, is a new feature in PLL, recent versions where you can configure inspection time blocks, days that are blocked, and availability of your inspectors. So we can get down to the hour time preferences. Only a few folks that we work with do provide this level of detail to the end user, but certainly possible. You can also add additional information requested by comments and additional fields here for scheduling. Canceling, very straightforward. Kind of the only business rule that I think we have out of the box is that you can't cancel same day through the portal. Really the idea there is if you need to cancel same day, we'd prefer you to call that inspector or into the office. Making payments. Typically people only pay fees on their permits, but if you're a good Samaritan, we would allow you to search by number or location, pay fees that way. Perhaps I'm a homeowner and I want to log in and pay fees, but I'm not attached to it directly. That kind of a scenario would be possible here. We continue to expand some options for administrative users, and I think this is really kind of the new frontier for us at Timmons Group as we continue to build out a web interface for admin of the portal, different options. I think the key thing here that we've been working on is developing an error log, which has been a pretty useful tool for admins of the public portal, where we just allow you to, I don't have any errors here, but it put in a date range, and it would pull back actual error information if there was something that the end user reported online. You'd be able to find that pretty easily. We've also started to play around with the idea of building out some dashboards specific to portal and what that might look like in here. I think we've seen some questions come in, so it might be a good time to pause. Greg, do you want to field some questions?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. We do have a few. First question is, are there file size or number limitations for applicants to upload documents?
Yeah, good question. We do have the ability to configure limitations on document upload. File size, number, file type are all pretty common ones. We've also recently, added the option to prevent duplicate files, right? Where we basically check, file name, file type, file size, and prevent duplicates. So certainly that is possible.
Okay, thanks, Michael. A couple of other ones. If I have PLL now, how difficult is it to implement this portal?
I don't think it is difficult. A lot of the things you're seeing here in the portal were configured in PLL admin, and I really like to think of this sort of as just a mirror image of your configuration. If you're familiar with the case template, a lot of this information is contained in that configuration. We do leverage things like registered checkbox, would allow you to actually show the permit type or application type in this list. So If that registered checkbox isn't checked, it doesn't show up as something in the portal. We use that same methodology for case data. So if you want to have just internal case data, if you don't click registered or that checkbox flag, it would stay as internal. We've also really leveraged a lot of the default setup on the case template. I mentioned people roles. That would be there. Fees we show at the end of the permit. If those are default, we'll show them there, as well as kind of like required case data in those items. So I think it's fairly straightforward. I think the places where we see it take a little bit longer, it's because there's maybe some very specific or complex business requirements around submission or inspection scheduling. But if those requirements are fairly straightforward, or what we would consider maybe more common, then it can be pretty straightforward. The point of sale, too, in my experience, some of those point of sale integrations can have some hold up just because the third party or the vendors are sometimes hard to get a hold of. But in our experience, if they have a modern API, it's pretty accessible and good documentation. That's even fairly straightforward to do, as there's a number of them out there that have really good modern APIs.
Michael, another question from one of our attendees. Is Card Connect one of the point of sale vendors that's compatible with this portal?
Compatible, I think the answer is likely yes. I do not believe we've integrated with Card Connect before, but I'd be happy to investigate and follow up with you.
Okay. One other question. We see the branding here. Can this branding be customized for each municipality?
Yeah, so we have a basic template for the look and feel of the portal. As you can tell, we've got this, let's say this left branded look over here, but it is fairly straightforward for us just to change the color, logos, and kind of provide that ability to customize your system. But we have worked with some localities in the past to highly customize it to almost match identically to what maybe you're putting out there through Civic Plus or other city websites. That does take a little bit longer, but that would be possible when we think of quick turnaround and quick deployment. As far as UI customization, what we'd be expecting is things like logos, color schemes, that type of thing.
All right, and one more question, Michael. What versions of CityWorks PLL does one need to have to implement this? Yeah,
I think it needs at least 15.x to use the portal based on the APIs. Anything prior to that, I think there are less PLL APIs that may cause some conflict, but we've deployed this, I know it's recently to 15.2.x and up to 15.5.x, the most recent version by CityWorks.
Okay.
We
actually,
do have
one other question.
The 14 public portal out there. So,
okay.
Go ahead. Sorry, guys.
One other question. Are we able to add an additional fee after inspections are completed? And then would the applicant be notified?
Yeah, so that's kind of a two-part question, I think. You can add additional fees after inspections are completed. In later versions or more modern versions of CityWorks, you can configure fees to be added based on task results. So if you have a workflow where fees are added after inspections, those fees could be triggered to add to your permit based on task completion. In CityWorks, and the public portal would just kind of see those fees with amount greater than 0 and then display them back to the end user. What I also may recommend in that scenario is you build out default or email notification that can be configured in PL admin based on task completion as well, to send an email to that applicant or contractor notifying that fees are due. That's something you could configure out of the box. So I think that a lot of that could be configured with PL admin out of the box, and that the public portal would just read that information and display it back to the end user.
Okay, thanks, Michael. And one last question for the team: if someone wants to find out some more information, who should we reach out to?
Yeah, maybe I'll stop sharing and Lou, let you pull your slides back up. All right, yeah. Well then, for more information, please contact Lou Garcia, lou.garcia@timmons.com.
Yeah, it looks like Lou's having trouble again with voice.
All right, and everyone, we'll send out a link to the recording of the webinar. It'll have all the slides as well as our contact information. I know that was on the actual invite to this as well. But we certainly thank you all for attending. Ron, Michael, Lou, anything else to add?
No, I think that this was a good presentation. Some great questions came out of this. You know, if you want to see more on the portal, definitely contact Lou. We can set up a time to demo it to you. If you want to know who's using it, we can share that with you so you can talk to them as well. The thing is, you know, what we wanted to get across is, you know, number one, you know, the portal is easy to set up. We can get it up in a short period of time, and it's a great tool, especially now when, you know, there again, people are working from home and stuff like that. So I think that this is a, you know, in some cases it might be a no-brainer. I don't know. But anyway, everybody have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thanks, Ron.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.